welcome in. It is the Monday, November 10th edition of the NFL Spotlight Show. I am your host, Ari Meirov. Week 10 of the NFL season officially wraps up tonight. We have a great matchup with the Green Bay Packers and the Philadelphia Eagles from Lambeau Field. A very, very entertaining Sunday of games here. A big upset in Miami with the Dolphins beating the Buffalo Bills. We had the Colts winning again, the Patriots winning again, the Rams winning again, the Seahawks winning again. A lot of the teams that have been winning here lately keep on winning. So a lot of action here around the NFL after last week's NFL trade deadline. But we did have another team over here collapse once again in the fourth quarter. That is one of the New York teams, not the Jets. They've won 2 in a row. That is the New York Giants. And we're going to talk about them here mainly here on today's show of NFL Spotlight. Let me bring in my good friend Ben Allen. Ben, what's going on, my friend? How are you?
Things are lovely. Yeah, a little bit more lovely than what's going on with New York. You always seem to get heat from Giants fans. Is that fair to say?
They haven't been good. I mean, I don't know what else to say.
So this episode is 100% not going to help, except for unless they agree with you, because I don't think 2-8 is quite the record they were hoping for. Because with the Saints winning, if you look at everything now on the charts, they're technically now in last place in the NFC. And those weeks of excitement, I say weeks of excitement, the 1 week of really big excitement from the Eagles in that win feels like a long time ago. Jackson Dart's concussed now. Cam Scatterbo out for the season. 2-8, not great. What should we expect from the Giants this week? Are there changes forthcoming?
Well, Ben, it's not just 2-8. It's 2-8 for the third straight year. That's how crazy it's been. It's been really bad for the New York Giants here the last several years. And when you flash back to when Brian Daboll was hired, this is somebody who took the team to the playoffs, was coach of the year, was pressing all the right buttons, was very aggressive, looked like he was going to be the guy for many years after the organization went through so many coaches in, coaches out, Ben McAdoo, Pat Shurmur, Joe Judge. It felt like they finally found the right guy. And it's just been downhill ever since. And when you go through some of the numbers and when you watch Giants games, and I'll go through some of it here right now, the Giants have allowed 115 points in the fourth quarter alone this season. That is most in the NFL by far. I think the next closest team is 19 or 20 points behind them for the fourth quarter. And that is while having a defense that is heavily invested in. I mean, Brian Burns has a big contract. Abdul Carter was the number 3 pick. Kayvon Thibodeau was the number 5 pick. They paid guys in the secondary. Brian Burns is up there leading the league in sacks. So if you have a big lead in the fourth quarter, you should be getting to the quarterback. But they're near the bottom of the NFL in takeaways, near the bottom of the NFL or middle of the NFL when it comes to sacks. That's been an issue all year. They've lost 4 straight games right now. They've lost 11 straight games on the road dating back to last year. That is a franchise record or ties a franchise record. Brian Daboll's winning percentage the last 2 seasons right now sits at 185, and they've won a total of 5 games since 2024. 17 teams alone this year have won already 5 or more games. So everything has been going really, really sour for this organization. And even with a bright spot in Jackson Dart, who has been really outstanding. I mean, the way he's playing, he looks like a future franchise quarterback. One of the big issues here for Brian Daboll has been the injuries and the hits and the beating that Jackson Dart has been taking here over these last 6-7 games since he became the quarterback. This season alone, including preseason, Jackson Dart has had 4 concussion evaluations. He's had 25 designed runs so far this year in the regular season. That is the most in the NFL of all the quarterbacks, and that is despite the fact that he did not become a starter until week 4. And he's also dealt with a hamstring injury, an ankle injury. He's been beat up like crazy. And of course, that is not what you want out of your quarterback. So there's a lot of questions right now here in New York. We're recording this on Sunday night. There's a lot of texts coming in, a lot of people believing that this could be it, whether it's Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen or it's one or the other. We'll see what happens here on Monday morning. I personally have thought this entire year that Brian Daboll is not going to get fired. And if there's somebody who'll get fired, will become the defensive coordinator, Shane Bowen. everyone has survived to this point so far this year. But when it keeps on looking like this, when the organization keeps on having embarrassing losses, when these things keep on happening to, I mean, I think newer NFL fans don't realize this, but the Giants were a model organization in the NFL for many, many years. That has not been the case over here over the last, really ever since Tom Coughlin was let go as head coach of this team over a decade ago now. So this is where it is right now. We'll see what happens here on Monday morning, but I would be very surprised if this is the regime going into the offseason. Again, Brian Daboll is the one who wanted Jackson Dart, but at the same time, even the bright spot of Jackson Dart has some flaws. The way he's being used, even though there's some success with it, you're taking your quarterback and giving him beating, and that is not what you want. So there are some big, big decisions looming over here in New York, and I think all eyes are on New York over here once Monday morning rolls around, which everyone will be listening to on Monday morning here.
What do you think really the future is then? Is it safe to assume that you don't think Brian Daboll is going to be the coach next year? Is that like safe to say?
You never want to say for sure, but I feel pretty confident this is going to be it for him. And again, I always have a hard time talking about this stuff because I do realize there's a human element to it, and this is a real and all that. But at the same time, I just went through all the numbers. This is the third straight year he's starting 2-8. And the owner, John Merrill, was asked about this last year when he spoke to a reporter after the season was over. He basically said, well, I'm getting very, very tired of all the losing. And I don't have the exact quote in front of me. I know we played it here when he said it, but he said it in a way where it's like it was a warning shot to the head coach and GM that we better turn it around this next year and show signs of improvement. And of course, being 2-8 again does not help. So the injuries have not helped either. Malik Neighbors going down, Cam Scatterboot going down, now Jackson Dart going down, who might miss the game. But there's a lot over here that has just not gone right. And there's not been the improvement that you want over here. And that's been the biggest issue. So that's kind of where we are right now. It's officially on watch over here going into this morning. We'll see what ends up happening, but I feel pretty confident that sweeping changes, at least on the coaching side, is coming to New York at some point.
Okay. Well, kind of where I was going with it is like if changes are imminent to a certain esque degree, where does this put Joe Schoen, the GM?
It's a complicated one because at least in league circles, a lot of people have been saying that these two, even though they were hired together, both of them came from Buffalo. There's been this element that some people think they've been trying to sway their ways that one of them could survive the other. I mean, you've kind of felt that a little bit in the offseason. Even like when they drafted Jackson Dart, there was this video out there of Joe Schoen saying, hey, we're going to go up and try to get your guy. And people tried to interpret it. What does that exactly mean? Um, Point being over here, there's been a lot of questions over here about the future of is it both? Is it one? Could one survive without the other? Joe Schoen has definitely had some better drafts as of late, but it's not been exactly, like Abdul Carter was the obvious pick at number 3, for example. Malik Neighbors was the obvious pick at number 5 when they made it. Like some of those picks were like, okay, obviously you do that. Anybody could have done it. But there are some other picks that have been successful and have worked out for him. But also when you look back at early on in his tenure, Evan Neal has been a flop and Kayvon Thibodeau has been a good player, but not necessarily number 5 overall worthy so far. Deontay Banks has been a bust. And there's been a lot of situations here with the organization where they're kind of wasting roster spots. What I mean by that is Evan Neal has not played this year, but he's on the 53-man roster. Jalen Hyatt, 3rd-round pick, has no reason to be on this roster. Deontay Banks essentially is unplayable. Russell Wilson should not be the backup quarterback. There's been a lot of decisions here where, at least in the league circles, there's a belief that, hey, this guy is not willing to move on from the players that he signed because he does not want to admit his mistake. And I wonder if ownership realizes that. So that's where I'm at with Joe Schoen. I don't have a clear answer with him. I do wonder what's going to happen with him. But right now, the focus that the league has right now is on the Giants head coach with Brian Daboll over here going into Monday morning. So we'll see what it is. But like I said before, I have a hard time believing that this regime is going to stay the same at the end of the year.
Okay, so it's an interesting conversation to have because it just felt like a few weeks ago, like I spoke about before, you may have not necessarily thought this would be the case, wrapping up week 10. We saw that triumphant victory against the Eagles where that offense looked really good. They were moving the ball. We've seen them move the ball quite a bit. How different are things now from what we saw just in week 6? Like, how has it been do you think it's been gradual that like we're seeing this kind of like fall apart, or has it really just been the injuries? Like, where do you think this all kind of started to fall apart since then?
I mean, I think it's a very obvious answer. It's the Broncos game where they blew that terrible game where they were up by so many points. I think it was a 19-point lead, and even though they scored two touchdowns in that fourth quarter, they still lost the game. I mean, they've had so many of these moments this year where it's like you feel like you won the game, you feel like you've done enough. The Cowboys game in week 2, the Broncos game, the Bears game on Sunday, where it's like we've been doing a good job offensively, doing just enough. The defense is holding them and doing a good job. And eventually the fourth quarter hits. And, and like I said before, the stat is staggering. They've allowed 115 points in the fourth quarter this season in 10 games. That is unacceptable. And of course, the 33 points in one quarter to the Denver Broncos in that game. That's really when it felt like it was collapsing, because this is a team that beat the Chargers. This is a team that beat the Eagles on Thursday Night Football. This is a team that was beating teams that are playoff caliber teams. Then, of course, once that happened, it just felt like the walls were closing in over here. And ever since then, now they've, of course, lost 4 straight games in total over here. So that's where it kind of felt like it. The injuries, of course, did not help. But when you look at this organization, there's a lot of situations here that are going on that are simply unacceptable for New York Giants football, for what this organization means. This organization was never grouped in with the New York Jets and Cleveland Browns and Tennessee Titans and the Raiders. Like, that's not who they were. And that's what they've become. And that's why there are so many Giants fans who are so upset and so frustrated. Aside from that, one year when they made the playoffs with Odell, and the other year, a few years ago, when they made the playoffs with Brian Daboll, this team has been a disaster year in and year out. Their season is over in October every single year. And that simply is unacceptable for New York Giants football, the brand that they used to be here in the football world. So that's kind of where we are over here. And that's why I feel like change is coming over here. And frankly, we had this discussion last year. They had internal discussions about moving on from head coach and GM last year. The reason that John Mara did not do it was because, like I said before, he does not want to be grouped in with those Jets, Browns, hire, fire, hire, fire, hire, fire, which was what he was doing when he hired Ben McAdoo and fired him after 2 years, and hired Pat Shermer and fired him after 2 years, and hired Joe Judge and fired him after 2 years. He did not want to do that here with Brian Daboll and Joe Shane. He preached patience and he gave them time. And here we are again for a third straight year, starting 2-8. So I think the patience is definitely wearing thin over here.
With Dayball, he's obviously on paper somebody that you want as like an offensive coach. He's got a good track record with that. I mean, we've seen what Jackson Dart can do when he's not getting banged up. What would John Mara really be looking for in a next head coach? Because we always talk about this leader of men mentality. Often you see this with managers in baseball, but with coaches in the NFL, we often really look at what the numbers have been, whether on the respective side of the ball, offense or defense. Do you think that the Giants maybe need to be looking more within that idea of getting a guy who can really rally men, as opposed to saying we need somebody specifically to work with Dart, when maybe that's not the issue right now?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what it is. And again, I don't know what the future of, again, no move has been made yet. So I don't want to jump too far over here with all of this, but there's questions about if the GM is still there, what is the GM looking for? Who's leading the search? If the GM is gone, it's a full blown search now. So there's a lot of questions when it comes to that. I don't want to jump there yet. But if this job were to open, and as of right now, we have an opening only in Tennessee at head coach, there will be a couple more here by the time the season comes to an end. This one is right up there as one of the most attractive ones that is going to be here in this cycle. The Giants have a potential of having a franchise player at quarterback, at receiver, at left tackle, at pass rusher, at running back, and all of them are under the age of 27, 28. That is not something that opens up every single year when it comes to the cycles around the NFL. And not just that, they're poised to once again have a top 5 pick in the draft. So whenever that ends up happening, again, I do believe a change is going to happen at some point. Whenever that happens, this position is going to be one of the most coveted positions here in the NFL. Not to mention you're going into a very, very big market as well. So there's a lot of things to love with the Giants job over here. I'm not going to jump over here and say what they're looking for, what they're not looking for. First, let's see a change happen, which I think will happen eventually here. But that's the way I look at this position. From all the jobs that are going to open up this offseason, we'll see what the final results are. This one is right up there as the most coveted one that will be out there.
Do you think that John Mara is looking at this as basically just literally piggybacking what you said with having that much young talent? And I don't have the books in front of me right now as far as what their future cap hits and all that kind of stuff goes. But do you think that he wants this to be a little bit like what we saw with their rival, the New England Patriots, this offseason? You have this top 5 pick. You have the willingness to go out and spend money. You have that rookie quarterback. You've got this relatively cheap roster around him, but with guys that do have some upside. I mean, if you just stacked up them on paper, prior to the draft and everything with Travion Henderson, with Will Compton, all that kind of stuff. Will Compton, look at me. Will Campbell. Shout out Bussin' with the boys. That dynamic, that the roster the Giants have, there are those intriguing pieces. So do you think that's kind of the thought, is that whenever, I know we're playing this hypothetical game, but for this upcoming season, this really could be a team that would be built upon next year?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what you're looking at, right? I mean, what the Patriots roster wise was last year to what it became this year and making the change and where they've gone, that's kind of what the blueprint you hope is going to be. And listen, I think this regime for the Giants was always going to have an uphill battle this year because the schedule they got, and again, the schedule every single year it rotates. They just got a brutal hand. I mean, the NFC North and AFC West as their schedule, that was always going to be difficult for them. So next year, whoever it's going to be, I don't have it in front of me, but it's not going to be the AFC West and NFC North again. They're going to have an easier schedule, likely a fourth place schedule as well. And they're going to have a chance over here to do what we see a lot in the NFL, which is flipping from being one of the worst teams in the NFL to having a chance to being a playoff caliber team. And again, like I said before, this team has talent. There's legitimate, real players here that are cornerstone players potential, from quarterback with Dart, Neighbors at receiver, to a left tackle in Andrew Thomas, to a pass rusher in Brian Burns. You have Dexter Lawrence. You have Abdul Carter. There are free agent signings from this past offseason who are still in their contracts, like a Paulson Adebo and a Javon Hallen. There are some other young players on this team as well. You're going to have a top 5-7 pick as well. There's a lot of things to like over here. And that's kind of what you're betting on over here with whoever will eventually take over this organization whenever that time comes. So the Patriots are the perfect comp over here. But again, it's easier said than done. There's still a lot of work to do. But clearly the messaging, the voice in the front of the locker room, it's just not resonating the way it once did. And something's going to happen.
It sounds a little silly to say because I think the numbers have been impressive from him. But do you believe that Mara believes that Jackson Dart is his franchise quarterback moving forward?
I mean, Ben, you know the answer to that. Obviously, I mean, when you use
Sure, but
the
whenever the conversation is we might have a top 5 pick, and if we're potentially going to have new GM, new coach in play, it's just, it has to at least be brought up, right?
I guess. I mean, you're doing a head coach search and potentially a GM search with the idea that you're taking over this quarterback, and that's why. I mean, when Jackson Dart was drafted, and if you go back to our draft night episode, I said this was Brian Daboll's guy. And I really hope you give Brian Daboll at least 2 years with him to prove why he took him. Now, I think the Daboll-Dar relationship is really, really strong. I also think the Daboll locker room relationship, in terms of just the messaging getting across and the team winning games, is not so strong. And I think that's really the problem here. So whoever ends up being the next coach, assuming a change is made, you're going ahead with Jackson Dart, because what we've seen out of him, and keep in mind, Ben, who he's throwing to right now, it's not great at all. I mean, we're talking about little Jordan Humphrey and, some of these receivers out there, Darius Slayton, who a previous guest on the show, but he's being used as the number one receiver on this team, and Wandell Robinson. These are good receivers, but they're not top guys for
league neighbors.
Exactly.
League neighbors.
So that's what we're trying to, and all due respect to those guys, but that's kind of what he's dealing with over here right now. And he's still making plays, but it's been very reckless, and that's another big problem here as well.
Yeah, and I mean, it sounds like a silly question, and it kind of in and of itself is supposed to be. But anytime you have these shakeups, you just get these occasional questions of, they're not going to try something dramatic here, right? Like he's kind of probably overperformed what we all kind of intended, right? Like no one expected he was going to be the second quarterback off the board, but here we sit now, and he's looked like the best quarterback in the draft. I mean, little raw, but still.
How they have won some of those games that we talked about before, I think he's very much in the running for Rookie of the Year. I mean, if they win the Broncos game, if they win the game today versus the Bears, like if that happens, I think you could say, hey, the Giants are not making the playoffs, but like this dude is legit. Like there is no clear offensive Rookie of the Year runaway guy right now. Ashton Genty has not been that. Cam Ward has not been that. It's probably a Emeka Egbuka right now, but like I think Dar will have an argument for it. But they've now won, and now he's injured, and this is where we are right now.
That is where we are for the episode today. Thank you guys for listening in. We've got a very special guest coming on the show tomorrow, which I think you're going to be revealing later on X today. But if you want to give any hints right now, feel free.
It is a player who played the Giants many, many times over the course of his career. That's going to be the hint for all of you. Plays in the NFC East, or played in the NFC East, I should say. It is the former player, and we will be revealing that here on my X page later today. So be on the lookout for that. But that will do it here for our November 10 edition of the NFL Spotlight Show. Again, we will be revealing our NFL Spotlight guest here on my X later today. We're back doing the guest. The last 2 weeks, we did all the trade deadline stuff. We're officially back with it. As always, if you have somebody you want us to get on the show in the future, please leave a comment, send me a DM, whatever it is, and we will definitely take a look at that. And we will see all of you here tomorrow morning.